Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
How you doing, Dad?
Very well, Steve. Thank you. Yeah. Are you okay? And your family?
Yeah, we're okay. We're good. Yesterday was an absolutely mad day. I had both kids all day, a 4 month
Wow.
old and a 2 year old.
Wow.
Uh, as Mims had a well deserved break, she was at a hen do, so she had a day off. And it was. I had some people around that I could call upon and help me out and stuff, but whew, that was a whirlwind of a day. It's a
That,
marathon.
it's an experience, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've done it a few times myself, don't worry, in the past. So, I know how it is. But
I.
it's a lot of fun, but it's hard work.
It's really, and my like absolute respect goes out to any parent that has that every day. You know, those two
Mm,
young children all day. You know, usually, we have one. You know, we're co-parenting both, so we got one, or we're both with them, or but to have both of them that young and entertain them all day and napping them and feeding them and all of that, and then putting them both to bed, which was an absolute challenge. At the same time, virtually impossible. But yeah, anyone that has to do that every day solo is an absolute champion. Someone a hero, really, to be able to do that. I'm very lucky that we both are around so much for both of them that we can
yeah.
co-parent together. But it was a very intense day, a very lovely day, but very, very intense. So yeah, that was my day. You had your family down yesterday.
We did, yes. All my brothers and sisters and their respective partners were down, and it was absolutely lovely. We see each other twice a year because we're all separated all over the place. So, but we managed to get together, and it's really nice to do that. Keep in touch with people, you know. You go back such a long way. Well, I do anyway, with my family, and a lot of water under the bridge. But we're still in contact all the time. We have a face a group, a Facebook group. No,
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp group. WhatsApp group. We're all in touch with each other, all the birthdays and anything happens, you know, which is fantastic, really. So we are in touch all the time, but when you see each other, it's a big difference. No, lovely day. Really enjoyed
Oh,
it.
good, good, very nice, very nice. Well, a couple of things to talk about this week. We've got a question that came in on our Facebook group that we wanted to discuss because it's a good chance to offer some advice to others. And then we're going to skim through the Cat's Eye class that we put up on YouTube and the school a little while ago, a few weeks ago now.
Mm.
So we're going to just talk about that and show some of the footage from that. But that is a free class that everyone can watch. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk about this question first that came in on Facebook. And if you're not a member of our Facebook group, then I'll pop a link in this video or this podcast for you guys to join it if you haven't, because it's a really good group, very active, and some really, really amazing pictures. So this question came from Benjamin, and Benjamin has completed your back nude picture, which is another free class that people can do. And this, I'll put up your picture in a minute, Dad, so we can show
Mm.
people this picture. But Benjamin posted his one, and he said he would like to have some advice on textures, and he's getting frustrated that he cannot reproduce the texture on the hair and in the sheet slash blanket. I watched and reproduced the movement, but I can't really achieve the expected result of the nice textures. So I'm going to put up your picture, Dad, on screen so we can see
Hmm.
what he's copying. And perhaps we could talk a little bit about those textures that you get
Mm.
on the hair and the blanket. This is a picture that was a starter pack, or is a starter pack, part of our starter pack range, our absolute beginners range. It's only 6 pencils, which is ideal for beginners starting out. But the hair, let's hone in on the hair and the blanket. Well, he's talking about movement. What is he talking about that when he says that?
Well, it's two areas really. A blanket comes into the category of clothes as well, and people have had a lot of problems with that kind of thing. It looks dead easy. This is the trouble. You think that's a piece of cake, surely. You've only got to put a few lines in, a few colours in, but it's more than that. Let's go for that first as I've started talking about it. What you've got there is you've got to put the outlines in, first of all. You've got that anyway. And then you've got to put the dark in. And the key to this is if we look at two areas particularly, one, the very dark area of the blanket that goes right from the top to the bottom. You see there's a dark area there. Well, that area has to be put in with, I can't remember the colour I use then. It's a long, long time ago, this is. Anyway, the colour would have been a very dark, reddy tone. And that would be put in. Now, if that's put in on its own, it wouldn't work. You've got to put a base colour in. But if you put a light base colour in, it's still not going to work because you can't get the depth of colour. So what you're looking for in something like that is a mid-tone. It's got to be a mid-tone. And I think this was a pinky colour we used, a strong pink. That colour goes in first, and then you can put the dark colour on top of it. And that's not the end of it, though, because then you've got to graduate it. If that particular area, you see there's a dark area, and then it graduates out to the light. The light's not so bad because that can be put in, and then you carry on with that across the blanket, and you've got the same thing. And then you've got that subtle change as well. Now, all of that sounds complicated, and it is. It looks easy, but it isn't. And poor old Benjamin did have I saw the original, and he did have difficulty there. And I can see he would have followed me, he would have followed my pencils, but still couldn't actually achieve that. It's hard. And I thought, when I did this, I thought this is a beginner's class. And a lot of people have done it, and it was a starter packs, and I did sell a lot of them. I think it was a subject material, actually, that was obviously attractive. But I think that the simplicity of that particular area is hard. I think the whole thing is, if you look at the skin tones, same sort of idea. You've got the dark edge, that dark edge, which runs down the body on the backside, from the shoulder. Now that you think, well, that's just a dark line. You put a dark line in there without any base color or very slight variation, and it goes wrong. You can't do it. It looks too hard. So anyway, I won't go any more about that, but that is quite hard to do, and I sympathise with people having a go and then finding it so frustrating. Come to the hair. That I found that hard simply because I followed the picture. It was a photographic reference I had, and I couldn't really make it look as natural as I would have liked it done, because I've got two things to worry about here. I've got the good representation of what I see, and someone else has got to follow it. You know, particularly if it's a starter pack, it's someone starting out has got to follow it. So I couldn't be too ambitious with it. So what I did, again, the same thing applies as applied to the blanket. You've got to graduate the colours. You've got to start with the lighter colours and then the mid-tone colours, and you've got to gradually work your way into that. This was done, I don't know, long time ago. If I did it again now, with all the experience I've had, I probably would have changed it slightly. I would have maybe done slightly different. But that's where the problems are. It's all to do with the graduation of tone, both in the blanket and the hair. If you put a hard colour in without softening it, it looks too fierce. So it is a hard one, and but it's a lovely picture, and it's been amazingly successful.
What would you have done differently then? You said you might have done it differently now if you were going to do it. What would you do differently?
I think I probably would have been a bit more subtle with the. You've got dark and light. If you look at the light, you look at the dark. This in between tones, I would have been perhaps, with my experience now, I've been a little bit more subtle with it. But even if I'd done that, people would have found that just as hard. It wouldn't have made it easy for them.
Because I suppose with hair naturally in real life, you have such a spectrum of tones. You know, it's not natural hair has so many in between colors. So you've got to try with just a few pencils, because there's only 6 in this picture, to get that. It's not. It is easy in that it's a starter pack. It's easy to follow with just a few pencils, but not easy to actually get super realistic.
That's right.
So yeah,
but it can be done, and as I said, if I did it again, I would find a way of doing that. I can't off the top of my head say, because I can't remember quite how I did it, but I remember when I did it, I was sort of, well, I'm afraid that's going to have to do. It looks a little bit forced to me. Doesn't look as natural as I'd like to have done. But as I said, if I tried to do that, people wouldn't be able to follow that anyway. So I think we've done the best we can.
Well done, Benjamin. It's a really good attempt, and as we've said, it's not easy, but I hope it hasn't put you off. I hope you're going to continue to practice these techniques. And you've mentioned, Dad, before, a really good idea is to just take a section and that you're struggling with and just do that bit on spare paper rather than commit to the whole picture, and just see if you can work on those techniques and those subtleties. But if you do more pictures, let us know, and continue to post. Not just you, Benjamin, everyone continue to post your work on Facebook, because it is so uplifting for other students, and it's so interesting, and it sparks off really nice conversations. So thank you so much for that. Okay, let's talk about this cat's eye. I'm going to pop the video up on screen, so if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, you should be able to see that. And I've muted the video so we don't have 2 of you speaking, and then I'm just gonna hit play, because I think it's quite nice. I really like these episodes where we talk about a class and we watch bits and bobs back, because it feels a little bit like a commentary, that we're, a director's commentary that you sometimes get on movies where they talk about the picture. We're not expecting you to remember every little detail, Dad. You've done a lot since this one. But I think it's nice because we can talk about your techniques and what you're doing. And so you can see that there's actually very few pencils that you've got on the right-hand side here. But I can totally see how all of those are chosen when I look at the reference photo on the screen.
Yes, because we had such a limited range, and I wanted to keep that limited range, I had to be very selective. If I was doing it, with a complete freedom on pencils, I probably would have doubled them up. But you'll see when I finish this how close this actually is to the original. So it does show you how you don't necessarily need to go mad. Now, what we've done here, I'm putting the white in, and obviously I've got to do that to put the base color. That's all it is here. It's the base color. And here we've used just the white, and you will see me pick up another pencil in a minute. I think it's the ochre I shall use next. Because if you think about it, if you look at the picture, you think, how are you actually going to achieve that with just 6 pencils? Because look at the eye, just the eye on its own.
Yeah. Even though I see those colours in the picture, I can see those colours in the picture, but I still think, surely you're going to need more.
Exactly. Yeah. Well. Once again, now this is what I'm doing now. What I was just doing, putting the white in that ochre colour, that strong ochre colour. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have done that if I'd had freedom, but I had to do it because of the restriction of the colours. I'd have probably put a light grey in there, for instance, or an ochre in there, a lighter ochre. But it's working out because I wanted to keep this as simple as I can. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, this is definitely a picture that I intended people who are just starting out to do. And it's no good giving them dozens of pencils because then they'll get lost. And again here, now the only difference here you'll see that although I'm putting the white in, I'm leaving little traces of that sand-coloured ombre paper there. So that is my base colour for the slightly stronger tones that we're going to be putting on in a minute.
I'm going to jump a little bit ahead because otherwise we'll be here for the entirety of the class, and just jump into the next colour that you're putting on.
Yeah, that's it. I think this is probably 186 or 187. I can't remember the colours that I use, but that would be the colour that I use. And again, now it's beginning, you're beginning to see it. But had I put that colour directly on, it would have been too hard.
I can see that you're pressing lighter here as well. In some areas you're pressing harder, in some areas you're pressing lighter over that white.
That's right. Well, the reason for that is you'll see on the area that I haven't actually filled in yet, you can still see that sand-coloured paper. You can still see it through there. See what I mean? So that means that it's going to register better and clearer as a kind of half tone. I mean, you're going to put dark colours on in a minute.
Yeah.
So I need some half tones there. Now I'm using the grey. Now this is the grey that I was talking about earlier. Here you can just beginning to see how this could turn out if you added a little ochre to that, which I'm going to be doing in a minute.
When you choose a picture like this, are you choosing this cat's eye section specifically because you can see that you can do it with a limited amount of pencils? You're not picking something that's too ambitious. You're saying that I can tell is going to need 8 pencils or 7 pencils, however many there are.
That's right. Exactly that. Yeah. I know from experience, I know that with the selected colours, I can actually achieve it. And you see that beginning to come now with those. It's a half tone. You see the good old cotton bud.
I wanted to just show that. Yeah. Again, we talked about this every time we do one of these series of pictures that you did, like 6 pictures where they were designed for the beginners, and that cotton bud being a great tool as a replacement if you don't have a blender or a color shaper or any other tool. You know, it's a good little one to do that.
Yeah, but again, people say if you're starting out, you may not want to buy all those quite expensive things if you're not going to continue with it. I mean, obviously, I would recommend people using the color shaper as opposed to a cotton bud, but it worked, and you see it does work really well. I was surprised, I've got to say, but because my arm was up my back, I couldn't bring in the color shaper. I had to find a compromise. It turned out to be a very good one. But now you can just see what I was talking about earlier. You see that dark color going in.
At this point, it looks a little bit messy, if I can say that. It looks a little bit.
Yeah.
It looks a little bit like this doesn't look like it's got structure. So you've obviously got this plan in your head that I know that this stage is coming up, this stage is coming up, and it's gonna look really good, but you kind of got to power through it not looking exactly like what you expect.
That's right. And this is a big mistake that people would make when they're starting out. They would see, for instance, that dark area, they'd put dark in straight away, wouldn't hesitate. I know that you can't do that. Well, you can, but it's not going to work because it'd be too hard, too harsh. And this is proving to be, now you see we've got another color going and it's getting a bit closer. What it needs now is that dark color desperately now to go in, because that dark color, which is that one.
It's like It's like, I mean, it's like you did this picture. You can remember exactly like what was coming up next then.
Well, to me, it's obvious. You know, I mean, I'm looking at it now as though I was doing it, and I think, okay, now we need some strength. Definitely need the strength. You've got to be careful. You don't put it in too soon. If you do, you're going to make the thing even more messy than it's beginning. But you can start to see how I'm using the lighter colours that I put in there originally and bringing them out.
Mm.
It's quite a unique technique. But there's a jump for you.
I'm going to jump here because it's a lot of that same, and I mean, people can obviously watch and follow this class on YouTube anyway. So, but I thought I'd jump to this because this is really where you start getting into the detail and shaping that build up.
And it's coming along quite well, isn't it? If you look at especially the dark area under the pupil of the eye, that's really beginning to work really well now. And as I say, you've got to bear in mind that we are restricted on pencils. So I've only got those to work with. And you look at the...
It doesn't take... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, that very dark area, you think, how am I going to put that dark area in? Well, we're going to be able to do it, but had it been dark on its own, it would have been too hard, too harsh. It wouldn't have had the subtlety that we can get with it.
Are you also, because it's ombre, you can't press too hard, right? You've got to make sure there's enough of the paper to be receptive to that dark color that's going to go on last. That's a key thing, isn't it, with ombre?
Absolutely, yes. If you pancake too much, then you're not going to get the dark color to respond. This is the problem you've got now. But this is now probably a very good stage because you're now beginning to get some detail. It's what's been working. We've been working towards this. And that detail is coming, and you can see it beginning. What it needs is just a little bit more strength, which is going to come soon with the, I think, 175, I think I was using there in the end.
And you're putting green in the fur, which I think is so interesting.
I could see it in there, Steve. This is the thing. I could see that green in there. I mean, if you look at it, can you see it? It's difficult to see, but if you're looking at the actual photograph, you can see it. But
and I suppose it brings all of the colours together, right? We've talked about this in previous episodes over the years, how you're creating a colour harmony within your picture. So by using the same kind of colours in the eyes and in the fur, in the backgrounds and things in your pictures, you're creating a really pleasant sort of subconscious view of a picture where you can the harmonies are all tied together.
That's right. And the other thing you've got to always remember when you're doing artwork, it is artwork. You're not trying to do a photographic copy. You're doing your own interpretation of that photographic copy. And this is what I'm doing here. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, as long as in the end, it looks like a cat's eye, which it's going to. This is what I was talking about earlier, coming in with that dark color. Look at that dark color on the corner.
And it looks like you're pressing harder here as well to get more dark color on.
I am, because I know that I'm not going to have to put more color into that, particularly. Maybe a little white, but so you've got to be. There's always a time when you've got to pace yourself. Don't be too ambitious, too quick. But you can see now it's beginning to come. What originally thought was, as you said, quite rightly, it was a mess. Now it's not quite such a mess. And here we're looking at the white going in. Now that white going in there has to go in at this stage. You can't put that in afterwards.
Could you? Here's a question. Could you have missed out that highlight? Could you have not put that highlight in? Or is it absolutely, like, is it one of those things that's necessary to define its 3D perspective?
Well, it's that, but it's also puts life in the eye. If you hadn't put that in, the eye would have been lifeless. It's always the same. And I found this way, way back when I was doing animal work. I used to put a little bit of light in. And then if there wasn't a light, I'd put it in. Sometimes you get a photograph that hasn't got any light in it. And I would then deliberately put light in because it brings life into the eye. So you have to do that. That's one of those golden rules, really. I can't think of an occasion where I've never done it. I haven't done it. Sometimes I haven't put it as strong as that. It's usually just maybe a little light in an eye. But if you look at anybody's eye, a cat or any animal or any human come to that, they've always got a light from somewhere. There's always a light reflecting in the eye.
Mm.
Glass,
seeing this cotton bud come into its own again as well, aren't you now? It's quite hard to sort of differentiate between that highlight and the rest of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they look like they're blending quite closely. Is it quite tricky to keep them separate?
Well, I know where it is, and I can still see that. I know where it is because I press harder. And in a minute, when I bring the greens in, I'll go round it. I'll know where it is. I mean, you could say, well, what if you forget it and it's gone in, and can you put it on top? Well, you can, but it's not going to work. You've got to have the raw colour for that to make it look as good as that. If it wasn't as bright as that, if the picture that I was copying wasn't as light, that's a photographic image that you see on the left-hand side there. So it's actually a photograph. Now, if that was duller, I'd have made the light duller. But one of the interesting things here, that is, I've still got to bring down the hairs and the dark on the top of the eye.
Yeah.
Not there at the moment, but you've got to pick your time. You've got to pick your moment when you can do that.
Let's go a little bit further.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna there we go. Just speed up that eye a little bit more so we can see you go around that highlight now.
That's right.
And again, I think maybe because the pupil isn't in, it just looks really odd now, doesn't it? Until you feel that final detail, and then suddenly there's the eye.
And that's right. Yeah.
And you can shape that. It's interesting that you can shape that highlight with the dark pencil.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it? Again, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but as long as the idea is there. But you see now that dark is coming in, and you see why it's there, because the light above it, directly above that, is missing the little whispers of eyelashes or fur that's coming down. That's going to come, but it'll come later. It'll come when we finish the eye, and it won't be very long.
Yes, there we go.
You're getting to it now. I'm starting now to bring that down.
And are you just picking random strokes, random movements, random directions?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Again, it doesn't have to be the same. As long as I've given the idea is there, then it comes off very well indeed. So we're nearly there now. It's missing that pupil, though, isn't it? Desperately missing. You want to put that in there. And now's the time. Now we can, yeah. Because we now can see the contrast, and you can see, as I've angled that very well, so for me anyway, but it's also useful to see it as a picture. You can see how I've used the angle of the picture for the angle of my hand. Now I've turned it around the other way now to go. It's a good idea. You try to do that without actually turning the picture around, and you'd find it more difficult.
Yeah, I bet you would.
because your natural arc of your hand.
It's got to be a bit nerve-wracking, isn't it, doing that bit? I mean, I know not for you now, but for the student, a little bit. Oh gosh,
It would be.
steady hands.
I think that's right. You've got to be mindful of the fact that if you made a mistake now, you're in trouble because you couldn't rub it out. Well, you could rub it out, but it would always show up. So you've got to be careful with something like this. Wait until the moment is right. But you've got to have as long as the line drawing is in there and it's as accurate as you can get it, then you're going to get it looking as good as that.
What's interesting here is you're not leaving that as a line. You're softening the edges with the grey rather than using the same pencil and pressing lighter. You're just putting another colour on top, right. and you can see that, yeah.
Yes, but you can see it. You can see it in the picture. If you look at the picture, it's got that colour in it. So I'm actually following the colour, and it's coming up very well. Considering, as I said, this is a picture that is only using 6 pencils, or 7 pencils. I think there's more than 6 there, isn't there? 7, or it might even be 8 there now. 3, 6. I think there's 8 now. I think I added one, and I can't remember which one it was. I think I added one. I can't remember what it was. But anyway,
an excellent interpretation of that picture, and a really great little project. And as I say, it's free to watch on YouTube, and on our website, so people can give this one a go. And if you do, let us know how it goes. But I'll never stop being impressed by you doing cat's eyes. You could do a whole nother load of them and I'd still be amazed and watching. It's one of those pictures that I think just never gets boring to see.
And I would, if I was doing this professionally now, I would have added more pencils. You can see the lack of pencils in the eye itself. I could have used a few more colours. I could use a lighter green, for instance, instead of the green that I've got there, as well as, not instead of. So there's in-between colours that you can use, and people can feel free to do that if they're doing this picture and they've perhaps got a bit of experience and they've got all the pencils. I have no objection using. I mean, the green there is, I think it's 172, I think, from my recollection, which is the right colour. But you could use something like a 170 if you've got Faber, or 168 even. There's a few more colours that you could add into that if you felt, if you were confident to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, these are just guidelines. People can, have free reign and do what they want depending on their level of experience. But fantastic. A really good project. Thank you so much for doing it, Dad, and for sharing it with everyone. If you do give it a go, let us know. But we'll be back next week with a discussion and an update on your lion picture that you showed us a couple of weeks ago. So we'll show the progress picture of that, and we can talk a little bit about how you're getting on with that picture. But we'll save that for next week. I am working on another class. It's, if you remember, the horse with the bridle. I'm editing that picture that you did a little while ago. It was a long time ago, I suppose now, Dad, that you did that. But it's a horse picture, and that's going to be on our website for people to be able to watch. It's not a free one. That'll be part of our membership, or available to enroll and pay for separately. But that one I'm nearly done with. So hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be able to talk about that one, and people will be able to get stuck into a fully, more immersive, more challenging picture. So that's coming soon. But for now, we will leave it there for this week. So thank you everyone for watching and for listening. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Enjoy your week.